Hello and welcome. This is the 8th episode of a talk series I'm doing. Last episode we talked about imagining lifestyles and the weight of possibilities and some other stuff, authenticity and rationality, how those two things get along, manic pixie dream girls. It was a good episode, I think.
The second thing that we could touch on slightly unrelated, is possibilities again, since we talked about the weight of possibilities at the second half of the last episode. We could talk a little bit more about that. The thing is, when we talked about the weight of possibilities, I don't think we made it clear that the weight of possibilities is so much greater when there has not been any possibilities actualized in one's life, or none of the big ones. Like, let's say you've got a big 5 of things that you want in your life, whether that be financial abundance, whether it be certain experiences from people, locations, whatever else. If you are able to actualize a few of those, the weight of possibilities lessens. It becomes lighter because you enjoy your current experience more, because you have actualized more of those possibilities. And the thing, so now, isn't that interesting? It is like that other concept we talked about in episode 5, the rising tide of your daily experience. But it is the interesting idea that possibilities become, they don't weigh as much on your mind when you have a whole slew of them that you want, and you've actualized a good number of them. The more you actualize, right, the less possibilities tend to weigh on you, because the more fulfilled or value you find in your daily experience already, right? It's just common sense. You're not always looking or thinking about possibilities if you're already satisfied with what your experience is. So that is another, it's another strategy you can use if you are the type that the possibilities tend to weigh on your mind. The more possibilities that you can make real for yourself, the less of a stressor it is trying to make all these different things real. And so if one possibility is being held up for whatever reason, whether it's justified or not, that is one strategy, is to try to bring other possibilities. And that's just an interesting idea, in addition to the whole weight of possibilities discussion. All right. Yeah, I think that's the voice note.
Yeah.
This is a voice note. It's it's about a Marcus dialogue idea. Marcus from the film To the Bone, Incarnation, which is yet to be made because still waiting on the funding to arrive. But we're still adding it and adding to the script and refining it when we get ideas while we wait. So here's the idea. It'll be one of the stand-up bits from Marcus, but the idea is he'll be talking about Sysiphus, the Greek character. Sisyphus has always rung a bell with me from a very early age. Probably Camus got me into it, Albert Camus, with his book, The Myth of Sisyphus. That affected me at a very young age. It was kind of a dark and stark. That rhyme is not intentional, but it's just, those are two good words to describe it. They just happen to rhyme. It was a dark and stark examination of kind of everyday life. And yeah, let's not go too much into that. If you're really into the existential stuff, you could check that out. It was the novel that gave birth to the philosophical school of thought called absurdism. But yeah, if you could look into that if you want. It's not really, it's not really a feel-good read. It gets really kind of existential angst, and talks about some dark topics and stuff. So, but we got off track there because I was talking about the actual character Sisyphus from the Greek myths, that he was condemned to roll a boulder up a hill. He was condemned to roll the boulder up a hill for whatever. Well, they say eternity, but whenever I feel like the writers just got lazy when they say that. Like, it's really, no, come on, like not even the planet will be there, or whatever it is, or the boulder at least will be there for eternity. How could he do that? How could he be? It's got to be, at most an aeon. Maybe it was only like 5 years or something. And the writers just decided to exaggerate for dramatic effect. Who knows? We'd have to ask the real Sysiphus. So if you have his number. But the funny thing about that is, you have to wonder why. So by the way they wrote the story, why Sysiphus was rolling the ball up the hill at all, right? Because he was condemned to roll the ball up the hill for eternity, so they say. But so then if that's his sentence, like, it takes, he actually has to, like, get up and try to, so, like, why wouldn't he just sit down and lean against the boulder? And it's like, what are they going to do? Add a year onto his sentence? So why did he continue to roll the ball up the hill? That's the question. Why did he continue to roll the ball up the hill? Interesting, right? He could have rolled it a different direction. He could have rolled it to the left or the right or north, south, east, west. He could have dug a hole and rolled the boulder into a hole, and that way, even if he wanted to, he couldn't get it out. Now that would be an interesting one, wouldn't it? Because they never spoke of. It's not like when he was finished rolling the ball up the hill, they'd like lock him in a cage or anything. He still had the whole. He was just out in nature by a hill, and they just told him, you got to roll the ball up the hill. That's your. So why did he keep rolling the ball up the hill? Well, now that's an interesting thought experiment, and don't read too much into this, because I'm just spitballing here. That would be an interesting comedy bit for the character Marcus. It's comedy, so don't read too much into it. It's just supposed to be a light laugh. All right. Anyways, that was just a thought. Let us now talk about the river of life. We touched on that before in this series. And I think that probably just resonates with a lot of people just in general. The river of life. Of course, it's a metaphor used all the time in literature and writing and stuff. If you ever read Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, that was kind of one of the big themes of that book, The River of Life. And but you could say, if you're kind of one of these analytical types, you could say, well, that's stupid because you can compare life to like 1,000 different things, and of course a river being one of them, because life is everything that we experience. So just any kind of metaphor that is just kind of big and encompassing, like a river or an ocean, you could call life that. You could call it a play, all the world's a stage. You could call it whatever you want. You call it a business if you want. If you're sick in the head, you could make whatever. You can make whatever comparisons, metaphors there you want. But let's examine the one life as a river. Well, the first criticism of that metaphor might be, well, yes, life is sort of like a river because it constantly flows day to day, bringing new and exciting and beautiful things. And also some things that, maybe are more of a challenges every so often. Hopefully not too often. But you say, yeah, but there are also things in life that are consistently there, or that you build upon day after day. So in that way, life is like a castle or something. Life is a piece of architecture. And maybe it's both. Maybe it's architecture on a floating platform on a river that leads into an ocean. That's one for you. You can use that if you want. Yeah, so in some ways it's like a river. In some ways it's not. So now if we're obviously you can see how this, as many topics that we have discussed in this series, relate back to my film that's in pre-production, To the Bone, Incarnation. Contributions to that fund are still accepting and trying to build up a initial chunk to get things started, or get the whole budget all at once. That'd be nice. But let's go back to the metaphor of the river. Sometimes a river is more calm and easy, warm. That's really nice. That's really, when, I don't know, you're doing a float or a rafting trip and you come upon a big wide open eddy, and the water is warm and clear and blue. Right, but then sometimes the water gets a little choppy, and you get thrown from your raft, and you have to find something to swim towards and latch onto. Whatever it might be, some kind of rock or a tree or something, or a tree branch, and that there are things in life that can be like branches. So maybe you enjoy the river you're just swimming around and whatever, kayaking, whatever, and you're enjoying all the currents and everything. But sometimes you need branches because they add a certain amount of consistency or just the right, if you find your own branches, but the right amount of something that you enjoy, that's consistent, that you can know is there and stuff. And so that's what I've always been a big I've always said that the life is a combination of structure and entropy, or whatever you want to call it. And we kind of find our own structures, or we adopt somebody else's structure if it works. I mean, on certain things, but so like you think like what kind of things are these branches? Well, let's say you're figuring out how to cultivate or imagine things in life that you like, and let's say you do fall into that thing where it's you enjoy it, that you do it a lot, and then sometimes it's helpful to find the branches that kind of connect you back to the surface. Almost, it's like connect you to the external, so you don't live your whole existence inside your head. So these can be things like projects that you do, or contracts, like a film, for one, could be a branch. If like it started going, it got the resources it needs, and it could do all that. That could be a branch, because that's something that every day you'll know there's something to accomplish, in a sense, that you actually enjoy doing and want to do. And so that's a good branch. Another type of branch could be relationships. Now that could be platonic or romantic, but new connections, people that you find interesting or intriguing. Situations like that could draw you more to the external. What else? People, projects, or job contracts. People and essentially what is work. There's more things than that. There's got to be.
This is another voice note in regards to the idea of things that draw people out of the external. I keep adding to that because I knew that seemed off the top of my head, just people and projects. We added experiences, and then of course, if we want to go more specific, we can just look at to the bone, incarnation. So sensationalism is a big part of the types of experience that draws people to the external. Depending on who it is, that forms of sensationalism can draw them to a smaller or greater degree. And money, obviously. Money draws people to the or having money, receiving money draws people to the external, because money is the primary resource of society in the external. It's how things are, many things are acquired and done and stuff like that. So I think sensationalism, money, people, projects, experiences. Experiences, and then sensationalism, money. That's a little more specific. People and projects. And I think that's so. if you get more specific, you can be more um, accurate or precise in the actual things that draw people to the external.
What else? I mean, I guess you could say events to a lesser degree, like if there's some kind of big event you're looking forward to. Um, I don't know, like a vacation, a trip or something. I guess that would qualify. That kind of draws you to the external, and that you're kind of looking forward to this thing happening. Yeah, to a lesser degree though, because it's not really something that uh, you can put time into before you go on a trip. It's just something that you plan out and then you go when you schedule it or when you feel like it. But I guess that's why people and work, quote unquote, work in the most general sense, work of doing anything, basically, especially if you get paid for it. But doing anything with effort. Yeah, right off the top of my head, yeah, this is going to have to get edited down because it's kind of a rambling thought. But I think we're onto something here. Just off the top of my head, really the two significant things are projects and people. And the thing is, that's not the two significant things about life in general, because the whole experience matters for that. The location, all the scene, the setting, and everything. But I'm talking just about things that really kind of engage you into the external. And settings and scenery and stuff are beautiful and nice, but if it's really peaceful at all, it's almost better to go to the internal on that. So I wouldn't really call it something that really draws people out of themselves. Well, yeah, I mean, and that's kind of a cheat code too, because I mean, if you talk about work that generally, almost like in the physics definition, just anything that expends energy, or I'm not a physicist, but it's something like that. Anything that, or for a person, like basically anything that requires effort. You could do work in your head with your thinking. You could do work about anything that's using some kind of kinetic or potential energy. So if you go that wide in general, then work pretty much encompasses a vast amount of life. But I guess more specifically, if you want to be more helpful to people, you could try to be more specific about the certain category, the types of work that maybe draw people out of themselves more than others. You could have a kind of a 9-to-5 thing, or you could do a independent. You're maybe an artist or whatever else. You could be. Yeah, you could be a tradesman. Yeah, of course, all different types of work, and they all kind of draw you out of yourself. Even like the remote stuff, because then you're occasionally communicating with people through messages or whatever. But that is interesting to think about it like that. I mean, yeah, if you wanted to avoid a little confusion, you could probably just say work and activity. People, activity, and work, or projects. And then activity would kind of take care of all those things that wouldn't really be considered work, or not necessarily single relationships with one person or this person or that. Well, I mean, yeah, you could say it's only 2 or 3 things, but that's when you're using the most general words that are available and that encompass almost everything in life. So it's not really. I guess it's not accurate to say it's a small amount of things. Yeah, I guess if we wanted to be real thorough, we could also do a exploration of things that draw you to the internal. That might be interesting, even though I kind of live there, so it would probably be more interesting for you guys than me. I guess that's why I like the external so much, is because it's it's a nice balance for all the time I spend in my own head. Yeah, things that draw you to the internal. I know we could just throw some out. Ideas, when you read a novel or something that provokes thought, that can, like, you want to. Some people would want to, like, go think about it. I already do that all the time, so I usually don't worry about that so much. Just things that I guess emotions are kind of either way. They can draw you to the external as much as they can draw you to the internal. So yeah, it's mostly thought, right? You go into the internal to kind of work with the most capacity of your mental ability, and that's usually in the realm of thought. So there you go. After all that rambling, bottom line, it seems like things that draw you to the external are mostly people and experiences and some type of work that you like. And things that draw you to the internal are thought, or kind of processing. If you need to process things emotionally, that could be you draw you to the internal too. The date is September. What is it? 13th. So let's talk about a concept. A concept that is what I think it's fairly common in kind of psychology, sociology, concept of the social battery, right? Now this is a concept that, like I said, is well known amongst the fields that it relates to, but I do not think that there is a definite consensus on whether it exists certainly, or whether it is more a product of the mind. To give you an example of what I mean by that is we all know the feeling of we're in a social situations, and that after long enough of socializing, one feels the need to take a little time to themselves, whether it's like you're at a party on the weekend and you have a really great time, or you have a great time. You get back to your place, and you do something that you kind of unwinds you, or you say like recharges your social battery, and that could be, you're just scrolling on social media, checking people out, seeing what they're up to, what they're saying these days, or whether you're watching a film or listening to music or reading a book. There's a lot of ways people can unwind, but then there are those social dynamos on the other end of the coin, who are just, it's like it feeds them. Like social interaction is like beautiful to them. It's like feed me, feed me. They're what do they call them? Social butterflies, or there's plenty of other expressions for these kind of charismatic. Who they are like the social. That's the realm that they have chosen to perfect almost, and that's admirable. That's it's great when you come across those types, you know. But the social battery. I mean, do you believe in it or not? It's I almost might lean on the side of it as more of a mental thing. Like you convince yourself of that. But really, it might be because, and this is probably more relatable for the more introverted types. You might feel like you're draining your social battery because you're trying so hard at certain things that have to do with social interaction. Like you're focused too much on, well, I don't know. You've got a lot of different personality types and stuff that you could look at for like how that would be. You have like the classic neurotics and stuff, like the Woody Allen characters, Joaquin Phoenix in Beau is Afraid. There's no end to the limit of neurotic fictional characters. And then of course, Charlie Kaufman's writing and his characters are a goldmine for those types. Yeah. And then you have the opposite. You have the totally extroverted characters. Let's see, who do we have? Who do we have in that category? Off the top of my head, Ben Stiller, Zoolander, the model, total extrovert. I think, yeah. Of course, we all have both sides. So it's interesting to think about it like that. I think most people fall more in kind of what I call the wide middle of extroversion and introversion, and you have ambiversion, ambiversion, which is like it's like being what do you call it when you write with both hands? So where were we going with that? Extroversion, introversion. Oh yeah, the social battery. So I think even for the introverted types, if they would kind of relax a little and think less about the details too much in the moment all the time, that that concept might completely fade from their mind. Because it's just something that they convince themselves of. Now, the social battery. I think it's only there with social interactions that seem forced and that you don't like to participate in for an incredible amount of time. You think about like, I don't know, politicians in a world conference talk that's being televised, and there's like 100 cameras in the room and stuff, and it's like an hour-long talk between two heads of a state or something, and then it's like, well, yeah, that kind of thing would drain your social battery because it has to be so formal and general at the same time, and it's like you wouldn't want to do an 8-hour session of that just for your own enjoyment. Like if it was necessary, you would. But it's like just the formality. That's why formal events kind of add that variety to life, because let's say it's some fancy dinner or awards show or something, and it's very formal and very extravagant or whatever. And so that's a theme that's why it's more, it happens less often than everyday life, because it's supposed to add this kind of variety. But it's like you wouldn't want to live every day in formalism. Not necessarily. Well, I think maybe some people would. Some people love it. I guess they love that level of structure. I'm trying to think of any kind of lifestyle that would. Oh, I guess military. Military is a lot of. Well, I mean that's. I guess at the higher ranks, it's super. Everything is super formal, but I mean at the lower ranks, just like the guys just getting in and stuff, I guess that they're still pretty raw about themselves. They just have to act formal when, during certain routines and stuff, making their bed and marching and all that, all that. Full Metal Jacket, there you go. That's the formalism. I think it's always a balance. Like you're always looking for that balance of anything.
This is just another quick note regarding the social battery discussion. Just so people don't misunderstand. Again, the social battery feels, in my opinion, it feels very real in the vast majority of cases. But again, when I'm talking about whether the social battery is a product of the mind or not, it's based on exactly what this feeling is of being socially drained almost. Is it really just social interaction that leaves people feeling drained, or much more likely, is it social interaction that one doesn't really prefer or is not really enjoyable, right? So if you think of social interactions where people feel like they need to play a role that they don't really want to play, social interactions where they're talking to someone who perhaps is they don't really see eye to eye with. Well, even those conversations can be really good if people are being authentic. I think it has to do a lot with social roles, that the social battery has to do with social roles a lot, whether it's feeling like one needs to play them or not feeling that way at all, but the people around are perhaps constantly playing too much of them and not bringing their own authenticity, to where that kind of gets boring. It's like talking to a role itself without the human underneath it, and so then, I mean, sure, you could see how a conversation like that wouldn't, or an interaction like that wouldn't really have any legs, based on the experience alone, right? Because the thing that energizes people in conversations and stuff is mutual interest and a kind of energies that complement each other, or just kind of feed off of each other in a way. You can imagine these kinds of interactions that you've had that you feel like do the opposite of draining your social battery, because they're great interactions. think about if you're going on a camping trip with a bunch of people that you like or find intriguing in some way. And you think about a camping trip with people that you enjoy. The concept of the social battery is almost completely zero. I mean, it's not like you think of a camping trip and then you think of a few friends sitting around a campfire and just making the occasional talk or setting plans. Somebody doesn't always jump up from the camping trip and say, "Oh, I can't take any more of this socializing. Let me go. Have to go into my tent." No, because it all feels kind of it's enjoyable socializing with people that you actually get along with, and then the concept of the social battery kind of it disappears almost, and that's kind of that's what first led me to this idea that the social battery is mostly in the mind, and it's mostly about feeling playing roles that you don't really enjoy playing, and that's why it's draining. But that's just a hypothesis. Yeah. Relating somewhat to this little comedy bit with Sysiphus, there is in that the idea or acknowledgement of inevitability of things or happenings in one's life. There is a very powerful thought experiment well, let's get into that a little later. There is inevitability. Let's just give a quick definition. Inevitability is the idea that something will happen eventually, no matter what. That could be anything. Sure, there are a few things that pop into people's minds, but to illustrate the concept better, you want to think about it in terms of things that aren't so obvious. Maybe it could be somebody who's inevitably thinks they're going to end up in this position or with this person or in this location in life. Just any little thing where society and people interactions and stuff sometimes, and definitely your own thoughts, one's own thoughts are pretty much the biggest factor in that. But the idea of believing something is inevitable or not. One thing. Here's another little tip that is pretty useful, especially for the overthinking types, is to examine the things that you, even without acknowledging, that you feel like you believe are inevitable, and how many of them are things that you'd actually want to happen, things that you'd want to be inevitable, or things that you wouldn't want to be inevitable. Right? So that's easily, you can just, good outcomes or not so good outcomes based on your own judgment of anything that you can think of, whatever. it's much better to believe in the inevitability of things that you want to see happen than it is to believe in the inevitability or to spend too much time thinking about the inevitability of things that you wouldn't want to see happen. Because, so here we go, if something is inevitable, then it doesn't matter whether you worry about it or not, or whether you even think about it or not, because it would be inevitable. And there are plenty of little sayings and stuff in life that already kind of point to this, but I think it's useful to put it into kind of elaborate on that. So, if you are thinking, worrying about things that you don't want to happen, but you feel like they're inevitable or something, well then, if they were factually inevitable, your worrying and thinking about it would not change it, right? Because then it wouldn't be inevitable. But if they factually are not inevitable, and that's just something that one has come to feel or believe, then again, thinking that they're inevitable would not help, because then it would just be, it would take on that possibility of becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, and with that explanation, here's the interesting thought experiment. And this also relates back to the whole possibilities discussion. When thinking about possibilities in life and existence, an interesting thing to do is to almost purposely leave out any idea of inevitability and any idea of things not being possible or prioritized. So again, when you think about things as just these possibilities, lifestyles, experience, events, you can more accurately, or what's that word? Objectively compare them solely based on how you imagine that experience would be. And that can lead to some interesting insights. It also leads us to the realization that the idea of inevitability is more of a motivating or discouraging factor of the brain than it is some kind of incredibly important fact about existence. That it's the idea of an inevitability is makes more impact as a factor in one's own decision making than it is necessarily some kind of factual future event or something. And once again, because if anything is truly inevitable, regardless of anything else, well then worrying or doing this or that wouldn't affect it. And let's acknowledge that obviously the idea of inevitability for certain things can be more or less accurate depending on what it is you're talking about. And there are some things that are at least so likely to occur that it is worth, if there's some kind of preparation or something that you need to. For example, let's say you get offered some kind of a contract for something, and you get the thing explained to you, and you sign it, and you know exactly what you're going to do, and when it starts. Well, then that's something that's like, yeah, that's inevitable, because, or at least it's very likely to happen, because I'm aware of it. It's in my mind. There were talks and everything, and then it makes sense to prepare for that thing. But if you think about, in general, a lot of the things that people consider inevitable, they aren't situations like that. Most of these things that people consider inevitable are things that there's nothing that they can really do one way or the other. You think about larger questions of life and the world and the nations, things like this, politics, like these things that they're just that worrying wouldn't affect them one way or the other, and yet people get trapped in worry over things that don't have much. They don't have much influence over. And that relates more probably to the neurotic personalities that we talked about earlier. Anyways, that's just one more interesting thought tool you can use, or be aware of at the very least. And I think with that, we can get episode 8 here in the can. I think it went well. It went well. So with that, we will say, I hope everyone has a wonderful week ahead, and we'll be looking forward to the next one. Cheers.